Hello and welcome to The Book by Book, a podcast about the odd book or two you've read. I'm your host Scott and I'm not alone, Tobie's here too. This episode, we're talking about Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. It's a pretty mid-spoiler warning episode, so if that's okay with you, continue on and I'll see you on the other side. A bit closer. I'm in the bathroom. Hey, listener, nice. The audio gods are against us today. Here on my side, there's how's that sound to you? Is that loud?
Yeah, it's no, I can't hear anything other than your voice.
Okay, I have Hyundai 5000 racetrack outside my apartment here in Toronto, so there's a lot of noises. That's quite consistent. It sounds like there's a bee in the room. And Tobie's got a garden party.
I do indeed. Right outside my window.
We'll do the best with the audio, but we roll with what we have.
Mm-hmm.
Tobie.
We do.
Since last time the listeners heard from you, you've gone round the globe one more time. It was your birthday. It was your birthday.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. I was like, wait, what? Where have I been? Yes, it has been my birthday.
Happy birthday, old buddy.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it feels good. Not half as brutal as it could have been, I guess.
Night on the town, a weekend on the town in London?
Yes. No, I went to a Pearl Jam gig.
Nice.
In Hyde Park. So, yeah, that was wicked. Very enjoyable. Although it turns out I only know one Pearl Jam song. Sorry if you're listening, Pearl Jam, but I only actually knew one of your songs, which was Alive. But they did a really good rendition of it, and I loved it. And the only other song that I knew that they played was not their song, and it was by The Who, Baba O'Reilly.
Oh, nice. I love that song.
Mm-hmm. And that was amazing.
I guess their list is huge now. I was a huge Pearl Jam for so long, and all the way up to Riot Act, I was into their albums, and then I just faded out. But there's probably about 5 albums since, maybe even 6. I can't imagine what their set list is if they know their classic songs are their classics.
Yeah.
Even though they might, Radiohead were quite sick of Creep, but they've sort of appreciated it because it put them on the map. So I think they still played it, even though they didn't really like it.
Exactly. But I thought it was great. Very enjoyable. I learned a lot about Pearl Jam. Also, Stereophonics played Imelda May and some dude called Johnny Marr, who everybody seems to think.
Oh, no way.
Well, there you go. Everybody
Smiths fan. He was the guitarist. He was one of the key musicians from the Smiths.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Didn't know that.
That's cool. So it was quite an event. It was almost like a mini fest, like a day fest.
Yeah. Yes, exactly that. EST. Very impressed. It's been a while since I've done any of that. Yes, definitely. Everybody was donning their tattoos and their wonderful clothing and looking very London-like. And it was just wonderful. Very good.
Nice.
How about you? What have you done? You went to a gig, didn't you?
Yeah, I saw an Amy Winehouse tribute act.
Oh, nice.
But it was in this candlelit arena. It was all quite smart. We were drinking cocktails. We had a little table. It was all quite, dimly lit. Really good. It threw me because I guess it was an American continent singer. I don't know if she was Canadian American, but hearing her talk in between songs and then go into this Amy Winehouse, sort of Camden Common.
Yeah.
No, don't just sing the fucking song.
Yeah,
she's not that common, but
Yeah.
But really good. Did a really good job. I guess half, because I guess Amy Winehouse did a lot of covers from that era. So it was sort of half covers of the wider 60s-ish era.
Right, okay.
And half Amy Winehouse songs, but pretty good. I did get quite, I don't know if morose is the right word.
Melancholy?
Kind of, yeah. I really enjoyed it. But I wasn't that into Amy Winehouse when she was huge, but some years later. But I was just thinking, man, she died at 27. And just the idea that she can leave behind something that, I don't know how long this planet has left, but in theory, like Nirvana or someone that just sort of made such an impact that someone on this planet on some form will always be listening. And this music she did, and she didn't do much, 2 albums, 3 if you count the B-sides.
Yeah.
someone's going to be listening to that to the end of time.
Very likely.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we can say the same about the book by book.
Maybe, Tobie. Yeah.
You never know.
Right.
You never know.
Cool. So that's me and Amy have something in common. Talking of music, Haruki Murakami's Norwegian Wood.
I haven't actually listened to the song.
Oh, no?
I don't know what the song is.
I once knew a girl. Oh, she I think you'd recognise it.
Yes.
It sounds quite Pixie.
Yeah, I know the one.
Fiddly.
Your rendition of it was pitch perfect, Scott. Pitch perfect.
Right, I'm going to do Amy Winehouse covers in McCartney-esque. But yeah, this is my third Haruki Murakami book.
I believe it is possibly my third as well.
What are your other three? Do you remember?
So what I think about when I'm running.
That's essays, like non-fiction essays?
Yeah. It's like musings. And I want to say Hard-Boiled End Wonderland at the End of the World, wherever that one is.
Mm-hmm.
That one is the other one I read. I always want to say Wind Up Bird Chronicle because I've got that in my collection.
Oh, okay.
And I see the cover for
that
all the time, but I haven't actually read that one, but I have read Hard-Boiled Wonderland at the End of the World.
Is it one of those things you just sort of get sick of looking at? Like, I want to read it, but this is so dense and serious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've read a couple. He's mostly known for like magic realism.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is not. Norwegian Wood is very straight drama.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Which I was surprised by.
I guess I've heard about this a lot. There was this sort of joke saying like,
this is what I've heard as well.
Everyone in Japan has read this book.
Yeah, it says it in the book.
Oh, is that in the intro?
In the intro, yeah, he mentions the fact that he was used to being like having a six nut figure number readership, and then this book dropped and it just blew up and he became huge and he found it a lot more difficult after writing this.
Kind of went into hiding, no? From what I gather, he basically left and moved to the States and didn't return for a long time and hated the amount of fame it brought him.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it, but someone was talking about an interview of him years later where he quite candidly talks about why he wrote this book.
Okay. And
he's sort of quite open to like, he just wanted to open up his audience. It seems like he sort of wrote it as a crowd pleaser.
No,
like he thought it would get him a wider range. I guess not to what he ever expected in a kind of blow in his face. But I don't know. He's one of those writers I'm always intrigued by. I think there's nothing of his I wouldn't give a go.
Yeah.
I think one of his Sputnik Sweetheart I read. It's a fairly short one, shorter than this. It was okay, but it wasn't great. We'll get into it after this book, but I never quite get what he's getting at a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're meant to. Having read Kafka on the Shore.
I haven't read that, but I have that.
IQ 84, 1Q 84.
Yeah.
You get to the end and he is not going to spoon feed you.
No.
And if you go on the internet afterwards, he never explicitly says it in interviews. And so there's a lot of theories about what it means, but it's a lot of figuring out on yourself and just knowing. I sort of believe he knows what it is, but he's not talking.
Yes.
It could be, I have a friend who is not a Lynch fan and thinks that he's just a comedian playing a great joke on the world and that he purposely writes nonsense, shoots it in a serious way, and everyone's like, oh, it's interesting. And it's like a play on pretentiousism. I can think some people probably think about Murakami that way, maybe.
Mm-hmm. I can understand that perspective as well, because he doesn't really, like Hard-Boiled End the World. I really don't know what the title is, and I should probably look it up. But that was such a confusing novel to read. It was, like you say, it's very dense, and it went places that picking up the cover, I never expected it to go. And did it have any meaning? Like ink blot creatures and caves and all of this sort of stuff. And you're just like, what is all of this alluding to? Is it just straight up fantasy? And it goes back to one of my earlier qualms of writing and stuff like that, is maybe it's just a story and it doesn't have to have loads of deeper meaning, metaphorics, and I don't know.
Yeah. What you picked this one up? What pulled you into this one? Just thought it was a short read for summer.
Yeah. Basically,
it was one of the shorter ones.
It wasn't huge. I'd seen that there was a film about it, and I thought I would like to watch the film. I really liked the posters for the film. And it was very much a book by its cover, basically. I just liked the cover, so I was just like, well,
let's give it a go. You still want to see the film?
Yes, although I might want to watch it late at night by myself, because my God, this was a sexy novel.
It was like sometimes raunchy,
sometimes
racy, but sometimes it didn't feel racy. It felt grimy.
Yeah.
Sometimes it didn't play like, ooh, this is like titillating. It felt.
Honestly, swear to God, I did not see it coming. I had no idea that there would be. I've never read any of his books that have had touched on this before. And to be honest, I very rarely read much. Sexature? Could you call it that? Sexy literature. Yeah. No, I've read very little of it. So when you've got characters being touched up by children and other shenanigans, and my God, did they give out head easily in those days?
I guess it's so it's set in the mid-late 60s.
Yes, 60s.
So I guess there's the revolution.
There's the student revolution in the background.
Well, not only like the whole generation of the era of the 60s, but it's sort of set in the midst of the student revolutions. But saying that, our lead character, he's pretty
Wanatabe.
Toru Wanatabe. He kind of stays out of it, no? He sort of watches a lot from the edges, as it were.
Yeah, peripheral. Exactly that. Sort of, he's almost plodding, lost, aimlessly plodding, which I quite liked.
Yeah, I'll give a quick overview of the book. I guess we can go fairly spoiler-free with this.
Yeah.
So, like, Toru Wanatabe is on a plane in his late 30s. And I think Norwegian Wood song comes on radio.
Yeah, he's reflecting back, isn't he?
And he's like, this reminds me of when I was young, a girl that just sort of haunted me. And then we shift back in time to his student days. And I don't think we ever get on that plane again.
No, we don't. We never. Hence, I forgot that he was even on the plane.
I guess that's one of his reflections on music being the memory. I don't want to get into it now, Toby. But I finished watching Stranger Things 4, and there was a nice nod to music. Music being a nice sort of good memory jogger, motif, totem.
Yes.
Toby's dying to talk about Stranger Things season 4. We'll get into that another episode. But so we flash back to Wanatabe, I guess, starting his university and the characters he meets. He's got is it Soldier Boy, Stormtrooper? He was probably the funnest character.
Yeah, he's in it very shortly for a very short period of time. But yeah, he's the anecdote when he's not around for Wanatabe to start conversations with people, isn't he?
He's quite OCD-ish Stormtrooper. So he just has this roommate who just very set in his ways. So he is, I don't know how to chronologically talk through this. When he, like a few years before, his best friend died. They were like a threesome of friends.
So Wanatabe is the central character that we're following through from the plane at the beginning, and he has two friends, Nakoko and Kazuki. And they're the triangle of friends that sort of hang out together and just do everything together, travel like do teenagey things basically in Japan, Tokyo, and stuff. So Kazuki commits suicide, and then Nakoko disappears. And then they bump into each other again in university and strike up a sort of a friendship that is that has this barrier between them of this best friend that has died. And they spend a lot of time seeking solace in each other's company, basically.
There's other characters. I mean, plot-wise, it moves forward-ish, but the story is basically about these 3, 4, 5 very lost, very spaced out characters trying to find meaning in the world, like trying to move on from the suicide that's just affected them, trying to find purpose and a place in the world. You get the sense they were already pretty spaced out before this death. So it's spaced out characters spacing out more.
Recovering from the effects of losing a close friend, the times and the period, certain sensibilities and ways and expectations, I guess, that's placed on the youth, as we've seen in some of the other stuff that we've watched, and just dealing with all of that. And then obviously you've got this background of revolution, but he is very much just watches it and sort of chews on it internally, but you only ever see it.
Then gets involved. And all throughout this, they're all sort of discovering, exploring their sexuality.
Yes.
With each other. I guess the book feels like it takes place over a good few years.
Yeah.
There's sections where they're out of contact for a few months or maybe a year. And Toru and his other friend, Nagasawa, who we'll get into, just become like lady killers and just go out on the town every night, sleeping around. Nagasawa, that friend I just brought up, who sort of knew about, I don't know, a third in, sort of kind of an ass, huh? It's not most.
Yeah, he's very arrogant, full of himself. Obviously, he's good looking. He's got lots of money. He can basically have and do whatever he wants. And Wanatabe strikes up a sort of friendship with him because they both have similar sensibilities, and even though they're so different, there is a connection that they form that Nagasaki almost takes Wanatabe under his wing and shows him the ropes and how to pull women, and then he becomes his go-to for just getting drunk and getting laid, basically. And there's a lot of that from the first third. It kind of focuses on that, and obviously then you've got Nakoko, who is there, and Wanatabe and Nakoko just seem to go on these long musing walks.
It's like that Richard Linklater film, Before and After Sunset.
Yeah, it's exactly like that.
Walking and talking. It is a first-person book, so we are always from the POV of Wanatabe. Even though mostly it centers around Naoko, she's very in and out of it. But I guess she never leaves his mind. And the only other character we haven't really talked about is Midori, who I rated really highly. I thought she was great. His new girlfriend, or
she develops throughout the course of the book. It's not till the very latter half, or almost the end, where their relationship blossoms into something else. But predominantly, it's about Wanatabe and Nakoko dealing with their unrequited love that almost feels wrong because they have this bond through a dead friend, and mental health plays an awful lot in it. Nakoko struggles massively with mental health issues and ends up going off to a sort of retreat.
Yeah, they call it a sanatorium, but it's more of an institution, right?
And we meet a few people there, which is one of them, Rikio Ishida, is really good. She's a great character.
She's a roommate. She was quite strong. She's probably the most likable. And she's sort of like in her late 30s.
Probably. Maybe even
she sort of talks from 40s. A bit more of an adult point of view.
Yes. Yeah. She's more seasoned. And she's been at this retreat for 7 years. Also very, very damaged.
Did you like this book?
I did quite a bit, actually.
Oh, that's cool.
Quite enjoyed it. I did find the moments like when Rikiko's reciting the tale of the piano, when she's teaching piano, and one of her students basically comes onto her and in essence strips her down to nothing, takes off everything and starts playing and having her way with her. But she's 13 years old.
Riko is seduced by a tween.
That was quite sort of like, whoa, because that just comes out of nowhere. I don't think there's really been much that alludes that's coming, and then it suddenly hits like a train. You're like, flipping heck, what is all this? And then it's just
felt the most detailed. Like all the other sex scenes are very like, it leads you into it, and it will not necessarily explicit, but it will tell you what's happening, and then it will just do a fade to black.
Yes,
this story, you stay with it until it sort of combusts on itself.
Yes, I thought the way that she that was told, that whole sequence with the street turning on them and gossiping, and then her having to split from her family and go seeking out this retreat, and then ending up staying there 7 years, and obviously then meeting Nakoko, and the friendship that then she forms with Wanatabe himself. I thought that was all really nice and very well written. It was very sad.
Oh yeah, the whole thing is like a reflection on depression and I guess, getting over some suicide.
How rife everybody was with the ease of suicide. Disappearing off into the forest, and you hear about the Japanese suicide forests and all of these sort of this seems to be like a big, like, I don't know much about it, and it's made me want to look into it in a sort of, not of a morbid fascinality, but just to understand why so many people why it seems so many people, at least anyway, commit suicide out there. It seems to be more of a way to go than anything, but yet it carries such, I don't know, like an essence of extreme failure, if you know what I mean. It's frowned upon severely in the society, but yet so many people do it as a way out. So
that side, I guess I found like too many of the characters were under such a heavy weight. For a short book, it was a heavy book.
Agree.
I was pretty glad when it shifted to the sanatorium.
Right. Yes. You text me.
Yeah, like I've nothing against it, but like the first 100 pages is set in college, and I just found it hard to engage in like dorm rooms, and there's no keg parties, but I don't know. It was like a lot of talk. I think this sort of owed to like how good a writer he is, because so many of these characters just done ever so slightly different would become such. But there's so many characters who say stuff like, "I'm different to everyone else. I'm just kind of weird." But if you've ever been at a party and you've met someone who's like, "I'm kooky," you're like, you can't self-apply these names.
Yes,
like these. You know what I mean? It's someone trying to be different or trying to stand out. Especially when you're young, it's more boring and irritating. And these characters have these conversations a lot, but it just towed the line for me of like I'm sort of engaging with them. And I
really liked the character of Midori. I thought she was brilliantly bonkers. She's very sort of headstrong, driven, reactionary, fiery, but self-aware and determined, and knew exactly what she wants for the most part anyway. And I thought her character was great. And her attitude to sex was hilarious. I really want to go and watch a porno. Okay, then we can go and watch porno, but not any porno. It has to be one of those SMN pornos.
Very specific.
In a theatre house.
Ideas you had.
It was just so funny. She was hilarious.
She brought.
And when Anatomy, he's just like he's almost like this Labrador come puppy who just follows her around like this protective angel. You knew that he could possibly step up and step in the way if anything untoward happened, but at the same time, he was very much not simping, but just, I don't know, like tagging along. Very much.
She was really pulling him forward.
Yes, yeah.
Like if Naoko was like the past that he couldn't let go, he really had to choose between old first love and the new romance. I did, in that first half, I've never experienced really anything like this, but there was just moments that did remind me of, I guess, my first big break and the raw emotion that now as an adult is quite humorous and laughable to look back at.
Yes.
Just that all-encompassing.
Yeah.
And I guess when it feels a lot worse when you're younger, especially the first love, because you get hit by this raw emotion and you don't realize that it's going to fade. You just think it's like a wave of depression that you don't realize is going to lift. So you just think, right, that's it. I'm going to have to live the rest of my life in this gloomy shadow because of this bloody person.
That's interesting that you feel it lifts, because I would argue it never lifts. It just exists to a lesser extent. Yeah, like I've only had 2 relationships that have have any meaning whatsoever. Both of them still reside in there as
that's true. But
a slow crest of wave that slowly washes and wears away at my soul.
But if this podcast is still going, in 20 years' time,
we can revisit. Yeah. So how those waves
is there a Norwegian Wood 2? How are you feeling? Like I don't know, but at least for me, at least those teen breakups or my early 20s breakups, like just the I don't know, the sort of moping deep when I was just a bit down. But yeah, I guess it's different. The splitting when you're young and splitting with someone
Yeah.
when you're an adult. It's different things that come into mind.
Yes, yeah, definitely. That I can
I sort of forget
appreciate.
you're coming at it from a different angle.
Yeah.
But not that the book does that, but I guess they had other reasons to be down, and it wasn't about them openness, but it did. Just some of it was evocative for me of just being young and in love, and not even like breaking up with someone, but like a serious, unrequited love. The pain of that.
Yeah, the longing. Yes, definitely. How did you feel like with the pace of the book? Like you alluded to, the first 100 pages are a bit of a, not a slog, but almost to one place. Whereas the latter half of the book, it kind of jumps about all over the place. Don't it? You've got the two locales, almost three: his flat, the sanctuary, and then Midori's place, the bookshop, and then her future life in her flat. The writing style and the delivery dialogue between the characters, I felt was at such a pace that you just couldn't stop reading.
I found the pace flat, like it never sped up or slowed down. It just never, like, what would you say? Didn't feel like there was a climax moment. There was no race to the airport to declare his love.
No.
But I think that kind of works into the fact that you have to remember we're a 38-year-old man reminiscing, and he has the whole spectrum of the events, even the stuff we don't find out what happened afterwards. And I mean, having read a bunch of his books, he's not really about the climax necessarily. Certainly with Kafka, I don't think he's anticlimactic. He just, the events are taking place, and even though there's a build, it's not like, I know what we were talking about the other day, the Stephen King one, where it's like a clock race to the end, and it's like,
yes,
I gotta read this page. It's more, it's not playing out in real time.
It's a snapshot. It's a snapshot, isn't it? Really, of it's just a section of existence, rather than this is existence, beginning, middle, and end. It's just this is something that happened on the pathway through life. Very much that, like you said, is just the song encapsulates that singular moment, and for that character it meant an awful lot, and it does have a sort of essence of beginning, middle, and end, but it's not anything huge or grandiose, and like you say, it doesn't lead to anything. It just
a little slice of life. I guess he's had to go out and say several times this is not biographical in any way.
Yes,
it's like I was there at that era, but my life's not that interesting.
Yeah.
I guess because it's his only straight, like, non-magical realism book, he gets like asked that a lot, or he used to, I think.
That's right.
Pretty well read, pretty well read music to people. They're not listening to your Elvis or your rock and roll. They are into, I guess it's a Murakami staple now, but they are constantly reading and rereading The Great Gatsby, Magic.
Oh yes, some of the books that they reference in there, I was just like, gosh, I don't think I've never read anything like that at that age. I was like Narnia, and my first Stephen King book, and they're reading like French philosophy and just
Magic Mountain, which is, if memory serves, it's. I guess the book kind of echoed that, which is why they bring it up so much. That's sort of set in a sanatorium in the Alps.
Have you read it?
A long time ago.
Okay.
It's quite like a reflection on philosophy, and I don't know if I get it mixed up with another book, but it's like it gets quite Shangri-La-ish, and it's about a guy who goes because he has bronchitis or something more severe, and he sort of meets this woman he's fascinated with. But she comes and goes, and he ends up staying, I think, or she goes and I can't remember. Okay. But this book kind of does mirror that. I think there's even a point where he's reading it in the sanatorium, and someone's like, "Why would you bring that here, you idiot?"
Yeah.
I don't really remember the punch of Magic Mountain, why they would be like borderline offended it. If the moral of it was sanatorium equals bad, that someone would react to it. But I guess that's become a staple. Certainly the classical music. I've got like a joke poster somewhere of like Murakami bingo. Right. It's like vinyl music, drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes, jazz.
Smoking cigarettes, definitely.
Yeah. But as a result, it does sort of capture that era kind of nicely. I guess.
Although it's also timeless, I felt. I didn't feel like I was in the 60s at any point. But I could, you can easily go, well, this is 60s, this is 80s, this is 90s, this is 2000.
Oh, okay.
I never felt like I was, it just felt timeless in essence.
I guess something I never really think about is we know a sort of hyper version of the American language in the 60s with like the hippie movement. So if we're ever watching a movie or someone from our era is going to do something there, they can sort of overdo it with like, hey, man, don't be square. A really good book I absolutely love that captures this sort of era is A Scanner Darkly.
Oh, yes.
The captures, like they had to modernize it for the movie, and I can see why, because it does kind of date the book. But it's a massive pleasure for me to read A Scanner Darkly purely for the characters and their language.
Yeah.
But I never think about, like, I guess I've never spoken to anyone who wasn't English. Like, did that translate? Was there like a Japanese lingo? Was there a Japanese version of Don't Be Square? And was there like a beatnik movement that inspired people to like the revolution?
Yeah.
Or did it change for them? And was it as heavy? Because now, like I said, we see it in movies, it gets overdone, right? Like, I think we were talking about 11, 23, 60.
22, 63.
Well, it's set in Texas, but no one really has that super heavy howdy y'all accent. But it felt like he sort of did his research, and it's as it were, or like, no, that's just an archetypical. A TV is going to do that. Like, if you're going to be in England, you're either going to be super well spoken like Benedict Cumberbatch or Cockney, like actor. There's no neutral accents.
No, that's true. Why do you think it was so successful?
I have no idea. This was written in 2001,
I believe,
or released in the 2000s.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Because I'm not sure I enjoyed this book. I found it interesting, but as much as I enjoyed it, I disenjoyed it. As much as it was interesting, it was boring. As much as it was like, I don't know. I'm very. I guess that's this writer for me. I don't really know what to make of him. This is probably the least I've enjoyed of all his books, like the reading process.
Oh, that's interesting.
I guess it took me a third to realize nothing magical is happening here.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess it's that thing where I had to sort of.
I didn't go into it thinking there was going to be, though, to be honest with you.
But then I guess I didn't know anything about it, except it was a hit.
It's interesting that it was chosen to be made into a film. I think it's the only one that's been made into a film, isn't it?
I think one of his shorts is a new film now, like Driving My Car or something.
Right.
I saw the trailer. It just looks glum and bleak.
What, for Norwegian Wood?
No, there's a new film based on one of his shorts.
Oh, My Car, yeah.
Like very dialogue heavy, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, there's some I'd love to see, but then, like I said, I don't know how much they have to punch it up because it's that climactic for a movie. Kafka and Ashore is some ridiculously evocative, imaginative scenes, but I don't know how it would work as a movie.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just an American thing. Like, it wouldn't be a hit with American audiences if you just stick to the book, but it would still be a bloody good movie.
I need to do a little bit more research and find out exactly why it hit home. Like criticals, oh no, that's the film. I'm stuck on the film wiki page. It'd just be interesting to see what, the reasoning behind its success, and then why it didn't do so successfully well in the theatre, because it only grossed 16.5 million, no, 17.6 million in the box office. It's a Japanese film and it's 133 minutes long, but
it's all dialogue.
You'd expect something like that to do a little bit more numbers, possibly. But it does remind me, and maybe this taps into why I like it so much. The like you referenced at the beginning, the Linklaters. So I found the book and the flow of the book very reminiscent, as you mentioned at the beginning, the Linklater before sunset, before sunrise, and after midnight series. That not just the walking elements of it, but the flow, the nature of the conversations between the characters, very snappy, back and forth. Somebody would set something up and you wonder how that person was going to react to what they were saying or what they were doing. And so I really enjoyed that side of it. I did find the sexual moments quite humorous, to be sat there sort of reading this evocative natured material on the almost like the tube on the way in. It's a bit of a
I did find a lot of the women sort of very Pixie Manic-ish at times.
Yeah.
Very close to it.
Mm-hmm.
Just that, I don't know. And then at one point, how do you feel about a male writer writing something where he's 18 and he sleeps with like a 40-year-old woman, and she's like, that was so perfect. I never need to have sex ever again. This is the last sex I ever need to have. I'll always remember this.
Yeah.
I'll die happy now. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I could understand it, that, like, I think she's older than 40 by that point, isn't she? I think
she very well might be, right? Like she was, I guess I don't remember what it is, but she does talk about her age a lot.
Yeah. I think she's like
he
almost
like turned off by her or something.
Yeah, she's the type of person that would be grateful to have a young buck like Wanatabe. Although he's not so much a young buck at that point, he's kind of like withdrawn and emancipated and hasn't eaten properly for ages. The way that Midori's like, what the hell happened to you?
Yeah, he
hasn't seen him for 3 months. It's quite funny. I love the way that she's just like, you didn't comment on my hair, I'm not going to talk to you for the next 3 months. Doesn't talk to him for 3 months.
Yeah,
he's just like, what the hell?
He's like trying to write her a letter going, I really like your hair.
And she just comes up behind him in the studies, and she's like, so do you want to go out for a drink then? It's like, yeah, where do you want to go? It's just
moving. Am I right?
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. I just really enjoyed that relationship between. I was very much rooting for Nikoko and Wanatabe at the beginning, and then Midori shows up, and Nikoto becomes this awkward sort of immovable rock of doom and gloom, and you're just like, God damn it, girl! Either pull your shit together, get on with it, or move aside.
Do you think that they were bringing each other down? Like, for them to be together just reminds them
too much of the past. Yeah.
And so at what point is it like, I just maybe stay pen pals once or twice a year? I mean, it's kind of what they do, right?
Yeah. For the large majority of it is pen palish. And then they'll just be punctuated by these short, snappy visits that would invariably end up in hand jobs in a field or naked.
Team's got to get it on.
Yeah. It does make that whole, I was like pangs of jealousy, just like, damn it wasn't that easy when I was your age when I had to be.
I think there's a scene where our lead kind of finds the key, especially getting laid every night, and he just goes out sleeping around a lot, and even though he actually finds it quite empty, he still kind of enjoys the physical side of it. So it's like, yeah, I feel a bit empty, I don't feel good about it, but I'm getting a bit addicted to it almost.
They're very open in the discussions of it. All the characters, like they don't hold back in their. They're very un-British, I guess you would put it. And maybe that is the case, that there is a very British sensibility to be so closed off about talking about sex and not being as open and free with it.
Plays into the student revolution and the 60s of it all. Yeah, there was some nice kind of foreshadowing in this. There was one scene that stood out where I guess a stormtrooper catches a firefly in a jar, and he takes it up onto the roof and he sort of lets it go. And instead of it being some magical thing, the firefly just sits there, and he's watching it, and like an hour goes by and the firefly hasn't moved. And he's just sort of like, does he know where he is? He's so lost in the world. And it kind of mirrors what's going on at the end of the novel, I felt. The jar has been lifted, and in a sense, he's come to terms with it. That's how I read the end. I went online, there's a bit of a what's the ending mean? He's I don't think he's giving anything away as a spoiler, but he's sort of at a train station, and he's like, where am I? Like, he's talking about he's lost and doesn't know where he is. I don't know if that was a very literal thing, what station am I at, or like a very metaphorical lost.
I read it metaphorically.
Yeah, I think so. It seems not, there should be that much debate into it.
No, I think it was just a case of he suddenly had this, whereas he, leading up to that moment, he'd been very insular and he'd really retreated into himself and was just dwelling on recent events that had happened that I won't spoil. And it just, really struggling to come to terms with everything. And then obviously this character comes back and opens the door a bit, frees him of the guilt that he should feel and all this sort of thing, and his perception of the guilt he should be feeling. And that release just opens his eyes up again. And he's just like, wait, okay, now I have 60 years, 70 years, if you're lucky, of what the fuck? Let's begin here. And he makes his choice and goes for it, which is really nice. That final phone call was quite poignant.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't love this. I can't see myself ever reading it again. Like you said, I'm not quite sure why this particular one was the massive hit.
No.
Maybe just a good sense of marketing. Like a very prominent writer who's sort of up and coming writes his first book that is like you said, like something that the masses could read. Like, you know, if you're like, if you don't like any kind of magical realism or fantasy, you're going to be put off by a lot of his other books. So this was the first one. And it was, you know, physically, it was a short read, but like I said, it still managed to be dense. Like this took me longer than it should. Not should, but there's other 300-page books that I've read in a week, and this was a 3-weeker or something.
Yes, no, I kept going away and coming back to it because, like you say, it was quite heavy going at points.
Like it's very eventless, and that's not to say nothing happens, but I think this is the most like, I guess, plotless book we've done.
Yeah, definitely.
I do think at one point, if it had been, if like the fact that it was short kept me intrigued and going. If this had been like a 500-600 page one and I was 100-200 pages in, I'd be like, oh, this is going to feel rough going. Like it was the perfect length. Yeah,
I agree. It lends itself to this type of a shorter version of our podcast rather than the in-depth hour and a half long. I think we pretty much said everything we need to say about it.
Yeah, I can wrap this
from
one
my
up.
perspective. Yeah, I'm happy with it. Would you recommend it as your first venture into this guy's style of writing? I would say no. For me,
because it's odd, because this is the one that did put him on the map, which sort of implies that, I don't know. I guess no for me, because it's not his favourite. Well, it's not my favourite. I would honestly say for me, start with Kafka on the Shore.
No, I haven't read that yet.
It's beautiful.
It's short as well, that isn't it?
No, 500-600.
I think it's short than that.
I don't know if there's different editions out. Like sometimes you get like a denser edition, but for me, like that one is very like a prime example of his style. That's him on fire,
right?
Like, super confident with the things he does. Like maybe his 5th or 6th book.
Yeah,
I think I've got a few of his others. I've got 2. I've got his first one, the elephant vanishes, or the sheep vanishes.
Right. Okay.
Disappearing sheep.
Yeah, I've got a few,
which I believe is about some sort of conspiracy game. Played in like, you know, in open sight or something. And then the one that you read, I forgot his name.
Hard-boiled Wonderland at the End of the World, Clockwork, Wineward Bird.
Yes, the Wind Up Bird Chronicle.
And that's the one.
Which my copy at least is quite dense. I don't know if it is.
Yeah, that's a big one. That one is.
Like it's funny because IQ 84, 1Q 84, I flipping loved, but it's really hard to sort of explain why. I kind of really want to. I'd love it. It is like his. I think he calls it his opus.
Yes,
and it's borderline. Like when we do a king, and we're like, oh, at this stage, like the king cliches are so up front. This one just has his key, like his cliches,
his staples,
and it's like 1,000-page plus. So it's not laughable, but when you do read into them, you do give yourself a little chuckle.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, well that's wonderful.
Definitely a writer worth checking out.
100%.
Yeah, check this book out. It's a quick read.
It gives you an idea of his style of writing and the speed at which he reads.
It gets you thinking.
It does.
This particular book.
If only for why it was so successful. But yeah, it's very good. I enjoyed it. I would recommend it, but maybe not the first ones. Thumbs up.
For joining us, listener. Let us know your thoughts. Hey, we're going to wrap it up around there. I want to thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed. Join us again next episode, and until then, it's where you look at bookstores, and have a good day.